Hey guys, it's Mr. Katz. Remember, this is a really good review for the Unit 6 summative, but make sure you have done these problems before watching the video or else it's not going to help you as much. So here is the review packet of the extra practice I gave you out today, Friday. We actually already did the first problem in class on Thursday, so we're going to go ahead and move to these problems right here. So it says if the area of the field below is 25x squared minus 81, what polynomials would represent the lengths of the sides? So to find out, remember area is length times width. So if I turn this into a multiplication problem, that would be the length times the width. Well, the first thing I want to do is see, does it have a common factor? Greatest common factor. I know 25, 5 goes into 25, but 5 doesn't go in 81. So for a second, I don't think it has a common factor, but then I notice that I have two numbers that are perfect squares. I can square the number 5x to get to 25x squared, and I can also square the number 9 to get to 81. Well, because it's the difference of two squares, this factors into 5x minus 9 and 5x plus 9. And those would represent those two binomials, the lengths of the sides. Number 4, it says simplify. So this is from chapter 8. It's dividing monomials. So I'm going to divide the numbers, but 6 divided by 15 is a fraction. So I'm just going to simply reduce it by dividing by 3 and make it 2 over 5. And then x to the negative 5th divided by x to the 3rd would be negative 5 minus 3, which would be x to the negative 8th, which goes to the bottom as the denominator, x to the 8th. And y to the 4th divided by y to the negative 8th would be 4 minus the negative 8, which actually would be y to the positive 12, so it stays at the top. And there's my final answer. That's the simplified answer. Here, same thing. 24 divided by 3 is 8, so that's going to stay at the top. X to the 7th divided by x to the 8th would be 7 minus 1, or x to the negative 1st, which would go to the bottom as just x to the 1st, the denominator. And then when I divide the y's, you do negative 5 minus 2, which gets you y to the negative 7th. So it goes to the denominator as y to the 7th. Now, next problem. We'll go to the next page. And it says solve the following. So, again, these are all quadratics. This is a 1 in front of the x squared, so I can factor this into the two binomials automatically because it's a special trinomial. I'm looking for the two numbers that multiply to positive 8 but add to negative 6, and that would be negative 4 and negative 2. So my two binomials are x minus 4 times x minus 2. So x minus 4 equals 0, and I'm going to set the other one equal to 0. And when I solve both of them, I get my two answers, x equals 4 and x equals 2. Here I have a quadratic again, but I need to get it equal to 0. And once again, I have one of those special trinomials, and there's a 1 in front. So I know that this is going to be easy to factor. I'm looking for my factors of negative 18 that add to negative 3. So I'm going to use negative 6 and positive 3. So p minus 6 and p plus 3 equals 0. And when you set each of those equal to 0, you're going to solve them, and you'll get p equals 6 and p equals negative 3. Letter C and letter D. I'm going to do one of them, but they're essentially the same exact thing. Let me go ahead and erase this top, so if you need to write that down, please pause the video. Alright, so for letter D, it's a trinomial, but the number in front of the w is not 1. So first thing I want to do is see if there's a common factor I can divide everything by. There's not. So I'm going to multiply a times c and get 24. I'm looking for my factors of 24, but that add to 14, because that's the b. So I have 12 and 2 would be my factors. So I'm going to rewrite my trinomial as a 4-term polynomial. The 12 and the 2, remember, come from the things that multiply to 24 that added to 14. I'm going to keep the equal 0. And then remember, you're going to group. You're going to group these, and you're going to group these. Let me go ahead and erase this right here so I have some room. So the greatest common factor here is 3w. So when I factor out a 3w, I'm left with w plus 4. And here the greatest common factor is 2. And when I factor that, I'm left with w plus 4. So my factors would be what's inside the parentheses times 3w plus 2, because it's a positive 2, which equals 0. And then remember, you're going to set this one equal to 0 and this one equal to 0 to solve, and you'll get your two answers of w equals negative 4 and w equals negative 2/3, because we're going to subtract 2 and then divide by 3. So, number 6. The area of the following table must be 35 square feet. What is the width? Well, to find the width, I'm going to need to know what n is, because I know the width, n plus 2 stands for the width. So first of all, the area of the table must be 35. So to get area, it means I'm going to multiply n times n plus 2, because that's my length and width. And I know that this should equal 35. Well, I actually have this in factored form, but it has to equal 0. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is multiply the n and simplify this a bit. And when I do that, I get n squared plus 2n equals 35. Well, now I can move over my 35 by subtracting it on both sides. I'm going to come down here and finish up the problem. So here I have a quadratic that equals 0, so I'm going to factor this. Well, this is 1n squared plus n plus n. So this is a special trinomial. So I could factor this into my two binomials. I'm looking for the factors of 35, negative 35, that add to 2. And that would be positive 7 and negative 5. And I have my n and my n. And when I set each of these equal to 0 and solve them, I get negative 7 and positive 5. Well, our length is just simply n, and our length can't be negative. So it can't be negative 7. So I'm going to go ahead and say that n is 5. And to find my width, I'm going to have to plug it back in, and I know that the width is n plus 5. So I have, n plus 2. So 5 plus 2 gets me my width equal to 7. Here you have write an expression for the area of the fenced garden. So that's the whole thing. Write an expression for the area of the fenced garden below. So here's a house, and the fenced garden would be this green part right here. So to find the green part, I'm going to multiply the whole thing, which would be 2x plus 6 times x plus 12. And when I do FOIL, I'm going to end up with 2x squared plus 6x plus 24x, that's the outside, plus 72. And when I combine that, I'm going to get a final answer of 2x squared plus, I'm going to combine these, 30x plus 72. And that will be the expression to represent the area of the whole garden if the house wasn't there. But now I also have to find out the area of my house, because I'm going to subtract it from everything. So here's the dimensions of my house. So when I multiply x plus 1 times x plus 5, you end up with x squared when I do FOIL, plus 1x plus 5x plus 5, or in other words, x squared plus 6x plus 5. Well, that's the area of the house, which I'm going to subtract from the area of the whole rectangle. So I'm going to take this and subtract this entire thing. Well, when you subtract, you have to remember to distribute the subtraction sign, change it to a plus. So this all becomes negative 6x and negative 5. And then I'm going to combine everything. I have a 2x squared minus x squared, so that becomes x squared. I have a positive 30x minus 6x, so that becomes 24x. And I have a negative 5 and a positive 72, which together would become 67. And this represents the area of my garden, which would be the green. Okay. Now, United States consume about this much gallons of gas each year, and the population is this. What is the average gas per person? So I'm going to take the total amount of gas and divide it by the number of people. And remember, when you do that, you're going to divide the numbers, and then you're also going to divide the powers of 10. So the powers of 10 we're going to leave the same and just make it 10 to the third. 3.2 divided by 3 is going to become about 1.06 times 10 to the third. So that would be the scientific notation answer, and if I move it over 3 spots, I get 1,060 per person, gallons of gas per person. All right, so this is simplify. What is the coefficient of the x term? So here I'm just going to remind you that you're going to do FOIL, and when you do FOIL, you get 12x squared minus 14x plus 54x minus 63. And when you combine it, you get 12x squared. Here you end up with positive 40x minus 63. And when it says, what is the coefficient of the x term? This is the x term. The coefficient is 40. We've already done greatest common factor. So remember that for greatest common factor, for this problem right here, you're going to either know that 28x to the fourth and 14. So the greatest common factor there is 14. They have 4 x's in common, and they have 1 y in common. These are both the same exact problem, but just a reminder that when you have a monomial, like 5x to the third y squared, you could just distribute the square to everything. But when you have a binomial squared, you actually have to write it out and multiply by itself and do FOIL. So for the other ones, let's just do them real quick. It looks like, I'm not sure about A and B, but I will do E. There's a 4 on the outside, so remember you have to distribute the 4 to every single thing. And when you have a power, do another power, you're going to multiply. And negative 2 to the fourth power is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. So you end up with a positive 16 x to the 12th y to the fourth. Standard form means in descending order, so you're going to look at the powers of x. So this one is x to the fifth, so it's negative 5x to the fifth, followed by 6x to the third, positive 10x, and a negative 8. And then the next one's the same thing. Area of each one, this is a square, so area is a length times width, or one side squared for a square. So there it's going to be 64y squared. Here you have, remember, multiply the numbers and multiply the powers of r. And 1 plus 1 is 2. Here 5m times 5m, or 5m squared, either way, you're going to get 25m squared. Solve for the lengths of the sides. So for this one, remember, it's a square, so we are going to set them equal. And please remember that you're going to do everything you did before. You're going to move the 2x over and then factor to find the lengths of the sides. You have x and x. You're looking for the two things that multiply to negative 48 but add to negative 2. So again, 48, you have 24 times 2. You have 48 times 1. You have 6 and 8. And I know 6 and 8 are 2 apart, so that must be it. I'm going to use a negative 8 and a positive 6, because that's what's going to add to a negative 2. And there are the sides. For number 2, it's kind of a guess and check. There's a way to divide. We're going to learn that next. But for now, when you have 3x minus 4, what would you FOIL to get 3x squared? So what would this number be? 3x times what would get you 3x squared? Well, it would have to be an x. Then looking at the last term, it's a negative 20. What would you multiply negative 4 by to get negative 20? So we're thinking it might be a positive 5. But 5 plus 4. So let's see if this works out. Let's see if the FOIL The middle term, you would end up with negative 4x, and if you multiply the outside, you get positive 15x, and there you'd end up with 11. So this must be it. Okay. And then please watch the other videos for the other review problems.